Well, esteemed viewers, the people have spoken, and I have a list of notes that I have in front of me, so I can only see part of me. Anyway, today we're talking about Wonder Woman 2017 and 1984. This was supposed to come out like the day after Wonder Woman 1984 came out because I saw it on Christmas. But then I didn't. then I kept putting off writing down all my notes. So yeah. So I guess we're gonna start with Patty Jenkins' movie, first movie. I guess she directed both of them. So Wonder Woman 1984. First thing on the docket is I want to talk about the choice to set the story in World War One. Because in the original, if I remember right, the original comics started at, like, I think at the end of World War II or like during World War II. And so World War II is generally the start of the Wonder Woman mythos. But I think changing it to World War One actually fit much better into Diana's, coming of age story, basically, and sort of her loss of innocence, because like most people who lived during the time had no idea. Like, it's a very complicated war, so you can't really blame Diana for wanting to blame one person and to think it was all, like when it has its roots at the end of the Napoleonic Wars, and it's like such a vast and complicated story that it's hard to comprehend, even if you're an avid history studier like I am. I find World War One very fascinating because it is such a complex mess, but I think it's also hard to explain to people because it's such a complex mess. So you have Diana, who grows up thinking that there's this cosmic sense of justice, which a lot of people, I think, did believe in at the time. She thinks there's this cosmic sense of justice, and there isn't. There's nothing. Like it's just this, like there's a reason that the 20s were such a weird time, and such a, people wanted to party it away or whatever. Because it's just this very like absurd, like it feels like something Albert Camus would write about. It's the absurd made manifest. A bunch of people, this war got started, like millions of people died because of one person's assassination, and a bunch of other people made these terrible decisions, but those terrible decisions were influenced by decisions that were made again by like people 100 years prior, so they can't be blamed, but who can be blamed? And then they tried to blame Germany, and that backfired, and so on and so on and so on. So yeah, I mean, like, even like most people didn't understand him, and there was, like, historically speaking, it wasn't just Diana. You didn't have to grow up on Paradise Island or Themyscira or whatever you want to call it. To have, because a lot of people when it started were like, yeah, war is fun and war is glorious and we're gonna, and it seems ridiculous now, but like that's, I mean, like, and then World War One in some ways it was kind of like the American Civil War, where you've got all these new technologies that everyone's figuring out, and they're very good at killing a ton of people. And yeah, so No Man's Land scene is great. Part of me was like, I remember thinking, I used to think, like, why, like, it feels kind of weird that Diana, like, it feels kind of weird to just have No Man's Land be broken after years of war, but then I was like, well, yeah, but someone like Diana would, of course, be would of course be very sorry. So someone like Diana would of course be able to break through. I mean, we see how she does it. You know, she's a superhero. You know, they had superheroes on their side. You could win that easily. Side note: one thing I really liked was the shot of Diana. There's this one shot that I don't know. I find super interesting when it's during the No Man's Land scene, which apparently almost got cut. I can't remember why. I also can't remember what I'm basing it off of. So take that with a grain of salt. But there's this scene where Diana, like, there's this shot that's, you know, from an aerial perspective, which is very interesting because it almost looks like something out of like a 2D Zelda game, you know, like, because it's like not just like tilted, it's like top down, you know, like the camera is looking down at her, and you can it provides this interesting perspective where you can see how she's getting all this fire from all these angles. I don't know. I think it's very interesting. It's a shot you don't see very often, and I think it's done well in that scene. That scene's amazing. So another thing that I've heard people discuss is Dr. Poison and her and whether or not her portrayal is ableistic. I've had to deal with ableism because of my autism, but I don't have like a physical, physical disability or whatever. So if any of you do and disagree with me, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. But my inclination is actually to say no, or at least it's not as simple as I think some people want it to be. You know, we'll get into overly simplistic narratives later, because she more than any other character, she reminds me of Harvey Dent, Two-Face. You know, like I always thought that the reason she had to wear a mask wasn't because like, oh, we're just I always thought the implication wasn't just we're using this shorthand to make her seem like the bad guy, you know, like and to be fair, a lot of other characters, like evil characters, do that, you know, and that sucks. It's not good. But one thing that it always struck me more as like a symbol of the types of weapons that she used. You know, like I thought it was like I always thought it was just like she had an accident with one of her gases, and that sounded way more like, but like some mustard gas thing went wrong and burned part of her face, you know, and she was still going on after that, which is a sign of her mania, I guess. That was my thoughts. But then again, I'm kind of I actually don't like linking autism with ableism, which is a whole nother discussion. I also don't know if we should be calling it ableism or just that's a whole nother discussion that I need to think a lot more about. So I guess what the last thing we're going to talk about that's specific to Wonder Woman 2017 or 1918, if you want to retroactively adopt the naming conventions, is that I guess this also kind of applies to Wonder Woman 1984. So anyway, I remember especially around the time Batman v Superman came out and Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman like first became prominent. And by the way, just for the record, I am definitely not a fan of Gal Gadot's views on Israel and all that, but I'm not gonna talk about that super much because that's beyond the scope of this video. And also spoilers for Wonder Woman 1984. And spoilers for Wonder Woman 2017, but if you're watching this video and you haven't seen either of those movies, then why are you watching it? Sorry, it's been 3 years. Dang, it's been 3 years. Anyway, there was a lot of discussion about body image and sexualization and objectification and all these questions of of the of female representation in media, and obviously I am one of the lads. I'm a cis man. I use he/him pronouns. I represent male. All that stuff, whatever you want to call it. So I'm coming at this from a bit of an outsider's perspective, but I also have thought studied feminist theory and tried to think about those things. So I think I have at least some idea of what I'm talking about, but I might get something wrong. And as always, if I get something wrong, please let me know in the comments. So I mentioned objectification, body image and sexualization and stuff in media, and I think those are different things. They're all linked, obviously, but yes, Gal Gadot is a very conventionally attractive woman, and it is kind of like telling that like we couldn't get someone who didn't look like a movie star to play Wonder Woman. That's a whole nother discussion that I don't really know where I stand on it. Or I mean, I do know that I don't know. I mean, like Gal Gadot's very good at the role, but etc. That's a whole nother discussion. What I do want to talk about is the very subtle difference in how I think Diana is framed, and in a way that it's let's just say it's fortunate that these movies had a female director, because a lot of objectification, and this is what I think a lot of people miss when they talk about these things, especially if they aren't super media, like they aren't well versed in media theory, which I'm actually not that much, especially in terms of film language. So again, I might get something wrong, and please let me know. But there's sexualization and objectification are not just limited to the clothes that a character wears. I think more importantly, because there have been characters who are way more objectified, who wear more clothes who have a greater percentage of their body covered than Diana has. As a man who is aware of the male gaze and doesn't like it, it sometimes is weird, because there are some times when I'm watching a movie where it's like, I know that this is designed to affect me, and it's not like this, and there's problems with it affecting me this way, but it is still affecting me, if you know what I mean. Euphemisms, yay! And I never get that with Wonder Woman 1984, or Wonder Woman, both Wonder Woman movies. And I think, again, because it is directed by a woman, and there's a very subtle distinction in the visual language of the movie, where the focus is much less on Diana's body in a much less voyeuristic way. So and in a much more humanizing, better way. So I think that is in the end much more important than whether or how much. Well, body image is and conventional attractiveness in Hollywood and stuff. That's definitely a conversation worthy of having, and I think that we should have it. I also don't think I'm very qualified to talk about it, but I do think that it's I do think that boiling the issue of sexualization and objectification down to how much of the body is covered or uncovered is really missing the point, and it's really it's very easy to reduce things down to it's bad, or I really hate the question of, is this movie a quote feminist movie or not, because it's we'll be talking about the binary stuff later, but suffice it to say that just because feminist theory can be applied to any movie, so that, and it can be a mixed bag too. You know, I've heard very mixed things about something like Beauty and the Beast, for instance. So, and I guess moving on from film language to more general gender roles, one thing that I think was interesting comparing the gender roles as portrayed by Wonder Woman, you know, in 1918 versus 1984, where, you know, in you know, in the first movie, it's very formalized. It's very, you know, like the mere sight of a woman is in a workplace is like, you know, like you see how all the old suits react to just her being in their presence and talking to them, you know, like whereas the in the Wonder Woman 1984, it very clearly has shifted, you know, and I don't really have much experience with this, but from my understanding, that is kind of how it happened, you know. That's how it happened with racism too, you know. A lot of these bigotries, they go when people call them out when they're explicitly mentioned and they're explicit, then they go underground, you know. Then they take the roles of social behaviors and you know, so it's much more like harassment and things like that in 1984, you know. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, I guess Steve Trevor, talk about Steve Trevor now. I don't know, I'm just going down the list of my notes. So I like Steve Trevor. He's one of the reasons I am of the firm opinion that Chris Pine is the best Hollywood Chris. The other one being that he was in Star Trek, so of course I'm gonna like him more. But I just love, like, he's, you know, one of the male characters who kind of like I aspire to be, you know. Another example would be Marty Ginsburg. I guess he's not a character; he was a real historical figure. But you know, anyway. But the guy from the Addams Family, which I haven't seen, but I've also like heard is ironically one of the best examples of, you know, like the movie about literal monsters has like one of the least monstrous male leads. So yeah, Steve Trevor is one of them. There was someone else, but I can't remember, and it's not. I mean, you get the picture. So he's very. I like him. He's funny. He's, you know, decent. Yeah, and I love his general like feeling of, you know, like of wanting to do right by the world, even if it doesn't deserve. You know, I think he says like straight up, maybe we don't deserve you, Diana. Maybe we don't, but it's about what, you know, like, it's not, to quote one of the most famous Korean philosophers, I don't think life is about what you believe. Just a little Mass Effect joke. I think I'm wearing a Mass Effect shirt, which I didn't wear for my Mass Effect video, but yeah, it's Alcor Hamlet. Anyway. Sorry, anyway. So, yeah, I think there is something interesting where he is more, he's kind of, I think, a good mix of idealist and realist, you know, like he believes in doing the right thing, and he believes in the goodness and in progress and all that good stuff, but he, like the goodness of humanity and progress. I just realized I cut myself off from saying, anyway, but he also, like, understands what the, he also understands how the way the world works, and it's funny, though, because even in 1984, like, Diana doesn't seem to, or, no, it's more like, it's not that she doesn't understand how the world works, but it's kind of weird, you know, you know, when I was watching it, my sister was like, oh man, like, she knew him for like, what, a week or something, and I'm like, yeah, but I don't know, like, it was a very eventful week, and they went through a lot together, so I can understand, like, her having pictures of him in her house and still being sad, you know, like, you know, but it does. Sometimes it felt like she was a bit overly like he comes back and she's again like understandably happy, but when she's like I'll never love again, it's like whoa. And Steve is like I hope that's not true because I'm gone, but you like deserve to move on and find someone else, which I think was a very good moment. Her having to let him go. We'll get into the wish stuff later, but he. I don't know. I like his character. I like and it was fun to see him. It was fun to see him like see Diana be the one to teach him about the 80s. You know, I even liked the Invisible Jet. Which if you told me the Invisible Jet is, I always thought the Invisible Jet was kind of weird. You know, very like surreal and hammy. I don't know what to call it, but I liked it, you know. I also liked the Linda Carter cameo at the end. I think I watched the Linda Carter show when I was little. I actually really liked Wonder Woman when I was little, and I vaguely remember getting bullied for that. So that was like, who's laughing now? Anyway, so that wasn't even in my notes. That's anyway. So yeah. So I guess now we can talk about Maxwell Lord, who I found to be very interesting. So, and now we're getting into just the very Wonder Woman 1984 stuff, where I found Maxwell Lord to be very interesting as a character. He, in some ways, you felt more like, I've kind of been noticing we're in a, like the Keanu-ssance, we're kind of in like a Pedro Pascal-issance, or like he's at the height of his career or something, because I love Mandalorian and he was in that, and obviously I'm still broken up about Oberyn Martell. So yeah, but he is, sorry, so in some ways you felt like Maxwell Lord feels like, he's very different from the Mandalorian, whose name I can't remember, but he's very different from him. He's almost more like an evil version of Oberyn Martell, kind of over the top, cares deeply about his loved ones, etc., etc. So I don't know. I found his character to be very interesting, and his motivations were surprisingly compelling and sympathetic. Like at first he was just like, I'm a salesman and I'm evil, but then you like find out about his son, and you find out about his upbringing, which I do think really should have been moved to at least some point earlier in the movie. Like it felt like very contrived to be like, oh, and he has this tragic backstory right when we want you to care about him, and it was like, but I already did kind of care about him, I already found his motivations to be sympathetic, so that the tragic backstory was fine on its own. I just think it should have been, again, moved to a little bit earlier in the movie. So my next note is literally, I don't know, maybe I'll put these in the description or something, word for word. I'll just copy and paste. I just put them on my notepad because I wanted to like still keep that kind of. I wanted to add more structure, because I keep on pace and didn't go on too many tangents. But I also kind of like to just like free form talk about it at least a little bit. For these, if I ever do like proper video essays, I'll definitely write full scripts and whatnot. So my next note is literally Cairo, Orientalist or not, at least better than Homeland. Honestly, this is one thing where I'm like, I don't really know where to put this. Like, this is definitely, again, like I said, better than Homeland. I've seen a couple episodes of Homeland, and wow, it is, it's got, there's a reason, there's a lot of good stuff in there, Claire Danes' character is cool, Mandy Patinkin, obviously, Pretty much everything about it I like, except for obviously the glorification of imperialism and using, Orientalist tropes. If you don't know what that Orientalism is, I don't know, Google Edward Said in his book Orientalism. His so I found so yeah, it's better than Homeland. So I've seen worse, but like it could be worse. It's such a stupid, like not necessarily stupid, but it's such a almost anything could be worse. This is one of my problems. I'm gonna do a whole nother video probably about privilege and stuff, and well, that's one thing I think is that almost everyone has some sort of privilege, but we'll get into that another time. Not to say that privilege doesn't exist, but I think the way we talk about it can sometimes be reductive. And anyway, I'll not this video, beyond this topic. So Cairo, I'm just gonna ask any Arab or Muslim viewers or whatever, or whoever, anyone who or just anyone who has studied this more, because I was like, I don't know. I really don't know. I think it's worth bringing it up as a question. So yeah, again, as usual, let me know in those comments. Just try to be nice, at least a little bit, because I am willing. I do want to listen. So there's two other things on my list. One of them is about the wish stone and the monkey's paw, and I think it's interesting because I was wondering about why 1984, and obviously there's the 80s nostalgia craze, but that's honestly, I feel like that's actually kind of going away, at least in some sense, because the cycle is starting again. But I would argue, that it's also in some ways a commentary on the dangers of, of course this is going to be my obligatory Reagan bashing. But I think it is on some level a comment, it's commenting on the problems that we now see with the Reagan era, with just blind love of the, Reagan ran on a platform of being hey, everything, the 70s sucked, and Jimmy Carter had criticisms of America and tried to make things better, and so we're going to not do that. We're just going to be proud of America because reasons, and the problem with that is, there's so many problems with that, nationalism, the return to conservative values, there's, and the general, economic success can also, cause a downside. So, I don't know. I don't really want to make definitive statements about it, but I do think there's a, the movie does, have a generally optimistic vibe because, from my understanding as someone who was not alive during the 80s and so whatnot, but it does seem like the 80s were certainly more optimistic than the 70s. And the problem is that optimism that you can do it, the Wishstone feels very American, American dreamy, in some ways. Everyone can get rich in these markets, and also, but here's all the, now we're seeing so many of the downsides of Reagan's, loyalty to the state, and I got the Red Lotus sweatshirt on, so of course I'm gonna, but there, I think we haven't seen, obviously war on drugs was a problem, and all that, so, So yeah, the ending. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like I should probably expand upon that, and I might in another video. If you have any thoughts, as usual, let me know. So the last thing I want to talk about is the the binaries, and I feel like there's this part of it is because because media is driven on social media is driven on these issues of things to get angry about. That's why there's very little, that's why all the clickbait is like, yeah, no, The Last Jedi is good, actually. Oh, The Last Jedi is terrible, as opposed to like, hey, well, I personally think The Last Jedi was really good, so of course, I'm biased because everyone's biased, so what are you going to do? But I've seen so many, like, is Wonder Woman 1984 good? Is Wonder Woman 1984 bad? And I'm like, it was just, I was kind of disappointed. It wasn't as good as I was expecting it to be. But I didn't hate it. I actually liked the second half a lot better than I did the first half. The first half I was like, and then, like, once the plot started picking up, and once the kind of crazy stuff started happening, and once we actually got some emotional stakes, it was like, yeah, okay, I'm here for the ride. I still, wasn't as good as the first movie, which was amazing, except for the third act where it kind of stumbled, but it was also thematically resonant, and I actually kind of liked the writing was pretty bad, but I actually kind of liked Lupin, the guy who played Lupin. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Sorry about that. Yeah, so, and obviously part of the reason I'm even talking about this is because I'm chasing the algorithm, which I'm pretty bad at because it's been almost a week since the movie came out, and I'm just talking about it. But, yeah, I think that in the era of clickbait, in the era of, like, like my video on Sia did, like my first one, did pretty well in terms of views because it was, and I don't feel bad for, I think I was in a legitimate place. Like, I remember this was like, I need to vent. I need somewhere to put this frustration and stuff. And I think that, I don't, like, regret that, but I also think that, it was more it was more of a problem, or not more of a problem. It was, but I think that I should have, I'm disappointed that video, like my To the Moon series, I was trying to be more constructive and more, and I agree with that probably more than I do my To the Moon videos. I probably agree with those more than with the stuff I said about Sia in the first video. But the stuff about Sia did better because it was, a topic that was an issue at the time, and it, it was something, had a provocative title. Yeah. Again, this was actually, like that wasn't me trying to chase the algorithm. That was just me being like, oh, and I'm angry, and I'm just feeling this despair, because no one's talking about this stuff. And yeah, anyway, going off topic again, but my point is that these current, systems of social media are designed to facilitate this polarization, this, like, they're designed to be this way. They're designed for maximum engagement, and when you're divided on these lines, when you're not talking about these things, but you're yelling at each other, and when you're coming trans in your views, then it becomes very hard to talk about. And that's one of the, like, a lot of media criticism has just devolved into nitpicking and conspiracies about, obviously there's, like, Ghostbusters 2016 and The Last Jedi and, the DCEU, like, so many of these, there's just, like, Like, just have a discussion and don't accuse the other side of being paid by the rival companies without anyway. So yeah, Wonder Woman 1984. Is it good? Is it bad? I like, there were parts of it I really liked, and there were parts of it that I was just kind of about, you know, like, and I get it, that's not as, you know, overly satisfying of an answer, but, you know, like I said at the beginning, war oftentimes isn't satisfying, you know, like, or reality isn't satisfying is what I should say, you know. Ray didn't have any wasn't part of one of the dynasties until they reversed that, but whatever. You know, there wasn't one, you know, Ares wasn't causing World War One, you know, like, sometimes things are complicated and disappointing, but also, you know, I don't know, that's the way of the world. So, yeah, anyway. So that's all I had to talk about. As always, if you like the video, give it a like. If you have something to say, let me know in the comments. Subscribe, ring the bell if you want to be notified of when I do more of these. I think I'm going to do another Stardew Valley video later, so I guess, I don't know, keep an eye out for that. There should be some more stuff on screen now or in a bit, depending on how long the rest of this outro is. Twitter and Letterboxd links in the description, although you might have got me from Letterboxd because I deliberately avoided posting a review until I could make this video and put this link as the review anyway. So yeah, so that's it. Oh yeah, share the video with anyone you think would like it. Yeah. So yeah. Yes, that's it. I'll be back another time, Steam viewers, for more of this stuff that apparently some people like. So I'll do more of it. Alright. One more, I don't know. We'll get the last lotus in the frame as I say bye-bye. That's the last lotus to red lotus. Anyway, bye.